클래스를 시작하겠습니다. 제목은 상관아닌의 MRSA의 항균 발생의 방식.
여러분 안녕하세요. 제 이름은 오병호입니다. 저는 MRSA 상기나리아 치료방식 연구를 쓰기 위해 여기에 있습니다. 여러분 저는 한국말을 잘 못합니다. 그래서 영어로 받기로 하겠습니다. 감사합니다. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow colleagues, dear professors, my name is Obyong. Today I will present to you the model of Antistaphilococcal action of Sanguinarine. The studies that I did during my time here at Wongbo University. The first questions that will come to mind is, why did we do that study? Why are we interested in methicillin Staphylococcus aureus? That will be the first question that comes to mind. But yes, that bacteria is a very difficult to treat bacteria. Most of the infections that are associated with these bacteria give us 50% of cases of people dying in a hospital setting. Therefore, the bacteria has developed innovative ways to be resistant to the prescribed antibiotics. Being resistant to the family of beta-lactam antibiotics because it is actually encoding for penicillin binding protein 2A. So, and other antibiotics as well. Every year we have cases of resistance. So this is one of the reasons why we're very interested in these bacteria. And you can see as well that year after year, for example in England, we have an average of 3,000 people dying because of that infection related to the bacteria. So what will be the solution? In our laboratory, we are interested in natural products from plants. The natural product that we use in this case is called Sanguinarine. This natural product is actually isolated from Sanguinaria canadensis, from the blood roots of that plant. So what we will try to achieve by that, we know for the studies that we made that this natural product has some antibacterial properties, it has some inflammatory properties, so we're interested to see if the natural product, Sanguinarine, can actually be used to slow down the progress of methicillin Staphylococcus aureus. So I divided my thesis into parts. The two parts will answer to some objectives. Let us look at the first part. The objectives that we try to achieve here is to first determine the minimum inhibitory concentration of Sanguinarine, meaning simply what is the lowest dosage possible that we can use to actually inhibit the growth of that bacteria. Number two, we have to use Sanguinarine in combination with no longer prescribed antibiotics. As we know, I told you earlier that MRSA is now resistant to many antibiotics. So those antibiotics can no longer be used. So the solution for us is it possible for Sanguinarine in combination with those no longer prescribed antibiotics to be useful again? So that is one of the objectives we want to achieve. Number three, the synergetic, the time-kill activity of Sanguinarine. We will see the process over 24 hours, how it is effective, how it is bactericidal against methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus. So, achieving those objectives, we published this paper that we call in vitro potentiation of ampicillin, of sacillin, of floxacin, ciprofloxacin, and vancomycin by Sanguinarine against methicillin Staphylococcus aureus. So we use a broad microdilution method to determine the minimum inhibitory concentration. Now, we use all these antibiotics that are no longer prescribed. And we use a series of methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus. We have the American type culture here, and we have all these MRSA that were isolated from the Wongbo Hospital here in Asia. These are the results that we have. For ampicillin, the MIC goes from 31.25 to 500. The 500 really show you the highest resistance. oxacillin 125 to 1000, norfloxacin 250 to 1000, ciprofloxacin 125 to 1000, vancomycin 0.98 to 500, and then sanguinarine 1.5, 6 to 6.25. These are the minimum inhibitory concentrations that we have determined for all these antibiotics. Now, I told you the number one objective was to see, is it possible that by mixing two compounds, two antibiotics, we can actually create a combinatory therapy and suppress the activity of sanguinarine. To doing so, we have to determine what we call the factorial inhibitory concentration index. It is basically calculated by taking the concentration of one antibiotics, for example, sanguinarine, that we divide by the minimum inhibitory concentration of sanguinarine that we determine in the beginning, and we take the second antibiotics, in this case maybe ampicillin, that we divide by the concentration by the MIC that was determined. How do we know we have a synergy? The table determined by the people who came before us, it is as follows. We have a synergy if the factorial inhibitory index is below 0.5. We have a partial synergy if it's between 0.5 and 0.75. Additivity effect is between 0.76 and 1, and difference 1 to 4. Antagonist is over 4, meaning that the two compounds cannot work together. Now these are the results, a lot of data that can be used later on in clinical trials. How do you understand those data? Ladies and gentlemen, let us observe this. We are more interested in the factorial inhibitory concentration of the association of sanguinarine and ampicillin. We can see for the American type culture that is 0.09, which means that it's way below the 0.5. So we have a synergistic effect according to the hypothesis that we gave in the beginning. Next, for oxacillin, the value 0.38, norfloxacin 0.06, ciprofloxacin 0.06, and vancomycin 0.31. So we did the same experiment for the MRSA as well here from our hospital, Wong Hospital in the plastic surgery. Now, these are a lot of data. How do you understand those data? I have summarized the data for a better understanding. Ladies and gentlemen, you can see here that if I take, for example, ampicillin and sanguinarine, 54% of the cases are synergistical. If I take with oxacillin, 54%, norfloxacin, 69%, ciprofloxacin, which is who has the highest, is actually 85%. Vancomycin, only 8%. However, for vancomycin, we have to remember that partial synergy is found at 85%. And additivity effect is found on ampicillin and vancomycin. Very important information here on this table is that we do not have any antagonist effect, meaning that these compounds, ladies and gentlemen, can actually work together to suppress the activity of methicillin, Staphylococcus aureus. So those data are very important if you want to find ways to actually study further how to combat that bacteria. We do not have any antagonist effect. Now, I told you about the cinetic, meaning the time kill activity of the mixture of the compounds. What did we do? To allow us to understand better this table, we have the control, the bacteria with no presence of antimicrobial. The bacteria is growing nicely over 24 hours. We have 24 hours here. We see it's growing. And then we use half of the concentration, half of the minimum inhibitory concentration of sanguinarine. You can see that the bacteria is still growing. So it gives us an indication that the minimum inhibitory concentration that we determined in the beginning is the right one, because it's not suppressing the activity of the bacteria. And now we can see as well for ampicillin, half of the concentration is still growing. What is very important for us is the red line. We can see that when we mix the two compounds together, after 12 hours, there is a nice decline of the quantity of the bacteria, which means, by conclusion, if you want to conclude that part, that the mixture of the two compounds is actually able to suppress the growth of the bacteria, which is a very good news for us. Next, we have similar results with the mixture of another beta-lactam antibiotics. I told you that MRSA is resistant to beta-lactam antibiotics in my introduction. But you can see that the mixture with sanguinarine, which is a benzoalkaloid, is actually going as well down, even from the 4th hour. A very good interaction here with oxacin. The results are similar with a fluoroquinolone that we call lofloxacin. Even though it grows a little bit after 12 hours, up to 12 hours, but after 12 hours there is a decline of the growth of the bacteria. Ciprofloxacin, the one that we found to be very interesting. Remember, I said in the beginning that ciprofloxacin has 85% of the cases, we had a good synergy in 85% of the cases. The interaction here is very interesting because starting at 4 hours, we can actually see already the decline of the growth of the bacteria, which is very interesting if you want to think about putting together a formulation that requires the 2 antibiotics to be together. Very good piece of information here. And then we have vancomycin. Remember, vancomycin, it was partially synergistic in 85% of the cases. Only 15% of the cases we had a synergistic effect. And we can see here, there is no complete killing of the bacteria. In contrary, we have it is biostatic. There is no growth and there is no reduction. So it may not be the best formulation possible, but it is still interesting because we know that at least the bacteria is not going to grow, it is going to be stable, biostatic. What can you remember? I have explained a lot of things. For the first part of my thesis, let us remember then the following. That sanguinarine has the potential to restore the effectiveness of select antibiotics, and it can be an alternative to conventional MRSA treatment. We have seen that the antibiotics that were no longer used can now be used because of the presence of that molecule that we call sanguinarine. Very good information. Next, the synergistic effect or even the additive activity of such compounds could be an alternative to monotherapy. We know that monotherapy, easily the bacteria can get accustomed to the molecule and find ways to be resistant, especially in developing countries where the availability of new drug is limited. So we are giving now new options to developed countries by mixing compounds together and find ways to suppress the activity of bacteria. So this research that we have found here is actually very important if we think of finding new formulation, new drug formulation to combat MRSA. Now, it is important now for us to understand, but how does it work then? We have seen the results. What will be the mechanism of action of sanguinarine? How does it work in the bacteria? How does it kill the bacteria? Very important question we have to ask. For that, we ask ourselves, is it possible that the bacteria is working through the cell wall? The antibiotics is working through the cell wall, I shall say. It is working through detergent inhibitors that are facilitating the sanguinarine to get into the cell and kill the cell, or through ATPase inhibitors. And then, is it possible for us to actually look into the bacteria and really see for ourselves where is the activity taking place physically? We are able to show those results today for the first time. Now, for that first part, this is a publication that we made regarding the mechanism of action of sanguinarine. This is a very important article that we can look into. So, as for the cell wall, we use only 600 to actually see over 24 hours how it is being suppressed. So first, we have the concentration, the control here. The bacteria is growing nicely over 12 hours, 24 hours. There is no presence of antimicrobial. Now we use half of MIC. The bacteria is still growing, which proves us again that we have the right MIC. The MIC here is completely reducing the growth of the bacteria, and the 2 MIC is reducing further, giving us an idea that it may work through the cell wall. It's possible that sanguinarine is attacking the cell wall. We will verify all those information as we go along. Now, I told we use inhibitors, membrane inhibitors. TRIS is an inhibitor that will allow the chemical to actually get into the bacteria. This compound has proven to be an inhibitor of cytoplasmic membrane, is a sanguinarine mode of action to the cytoplasmic membrane. We can assume that it's possible. Why? Because we can see a nice decline of the combination of sanguinarine and tris here, that there is a decline compared to sanguinarine alone. So, which means that tris is a good inhibitor. It's actually opening the cytoplasmic membrane for sanguinarine to actually get into the cell and destroy the cell. We have similar results, but not as pronounced as the first one, by using tryptophan X100. The results are similar. Remember, we use very small quantity of sanguinarine because we don't want to destroy the bacteria. We just want to see the morphological changes taking place in the bacteria. And now, is it working through ATPase inhibitors? Ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, it is not working through ATPase inhibitors. That we know for sure. Why? Because the combination of sanguinarine and sodium oxide is actually growing. The bacteria is still growing. So it means that sanguinarine doesn't have its effect through ATPase inhibitors. So we can remove that hypothesis. We use another ATPase inhibitors, DCCD, to confirm that information. And once again, there is a growth. Once again, there is a growth. So this mechanism of action is not of sanguinarine. Now, very important aspect of our study is that for the first time here in our laboratory, we were able to actually detect into the bacteria and see what is actually taking place. Look with me here. This is how the bacteria looks like. You can see the cell wall, the cytoplasmic membrane. You can see the septa here, by which the bacteria is going to divide itself. So you can see how the bacteria look in the beginning. Now, we know by experience that by injecting small quantity of a drug is going to slowly change the morphology of the bacteria. So then we can observe slowly how the bacteria is being transformed. So what did we get here? Oh, interesting information. We now start to see that around the cell wall and the cytoplasmic membrane, not the MIC, but a very small quantity, half MIC, and in some cases, a quarter of the MIC was used. And we can see some morphological changes inside the bacteria. So now, our hypothesis of sanguinarine attacking maybe through the cell wall and the cytoplasmic membrane is taking shape. Next. Now we can see another observation, ladies and gentlemen. The septa that you see here is no longer here. It has disappeared. Conclusion, we understand that the bacteria cannot divide itself. It is then possible that sanguinarine is actually working through the cytoplasmic membrane. We can for the first time assume that and even conclude that yes, through the cell wall and maybe through the cytoplasmic membrane. The investigation has shown that sanguinarine and berberine are part of the same family of alkaloid, and berberine is working through the DNA and the cytoplasmic membrane. It is possible that they have the same mechanism of action, because we can see here as we go further that now we have what we call a host cell. The whole cell is empty. It is possible the whole DNA, the whole chromosome, the whole ribosome, everything is just empty, and that the molecule has just done its work. How did it do it? We think that it starts maybe on the cell wall, and that it will also attack the cytoplasmic membrane that will allow the bacteria to accumulate inside, the antibiotics to accumulate inside the bacteria and actually destroy the bacteria. So for the first time, we are now sure that beyond the values that we gave over all these 600 values that are nice values, but for the first time, we can actually see physically how our bacteria look like in contact with the molecule that we have chosen to study. I've explained a lot of things. So what do you remember? Let us remember that, yes, our first conclusion regarding the mechanism of action is that the predisposition of lysis and the outer morphology, meaning the change of the shape of the bacteria, seen by transmission electron microscopy suggests that sanguinarine compromises the cytoplasmic membrane. We can make that conclusion, there is no doubt. We have seen it, we verify with the numbers, and we can verify physically through electron microscopy. Number two, the study provides evidence that, number one, the antibacterial action of sanguinarine results in lysis of the cell. We saw the cell die, so the synertic is there, so there is no doubt about it. Number two, the elimination of the inner electron-dense layer of the cell wall. We saw the cell wall being destroyed, so we can conclude that too. We saw it physically. Number three, the formation of the division septa in Staphylococcus aureus. The line that was in the middle was not there, so the bacteria cannot replicate itself anymore. So these are the conclusions, ladies and gentlemen, that we can make. So during my time here, I had the privilege working on the Professor Kwon and the hard-working team to be the first author of 5 manuscripts and contributed to, I think, 8 different manuscripts because of this hard-working team that really taught me a lot of things. I'm really thankful for what they taught me here, this laboratory. For that reason, I would like to thank the government of Korea for allowing me to come to your country and study here, have a scholarship to study in your prestigious university. I really hope that you will receive more students from my country that you actually see here, and that some of them will stay here at Wangwon University. So I thank Wangwon University for transforming an average student to be a comfortable and an excellent student now. Thank you for your patience for training me into your school, because when I came here, I only had an idea, but I didn't know much about natural products. And the credit goes to this wonderful team. I would like to thank Dr. Kang, Dr. O, Dr. Che, Dr. Lee, Miss John, and particularly Dr. Choi, who was my half professor, my mentor. He is the one who taught me every day how to go with antimicrobial tests, and I really wish him luck. I received an email from him yesterday, so I was very encouraged. And I'm thankful that my presentation is being taped so I can send it to him and he can tell me if I was a good student. And I also thank my professor, Professor Kwon. I told him that I live 10 years in Canada, but I never ski. So he has to teach me how to ski here in Korea. And beyond that, really life skills. He's been very patient with me and really work on my temper. And I really thank you, sir, for being patient with me, for welcoming me to your laboratory and making me the person I am today. I also would like to thank my wonderful wife and my children. And I thank you for being patient with me. And I really hope that we go for the better. I hope that you don't have difficult questions for me, but I'm available to answer to your question. 감사합니다.
발표가 아주 아름답죠? 아주 내용도 좋고요. 혹시 질문 있으면 먼저 뒤에 있는 학생들 먼저 질문하겠으면 질문해 주세요. 질문이 없나요? 아, 없어? 그럼 이제 교수님들 먼저 질문을 좀 해주시죠.
Can I ask something? Very simple. I don't know actually almost anything about this kind of job. But by the way, are you now good secure?
If I am?
Yeah, are you good secure now? Can you secure?
Yeah, I feel really comfortable about myself. Everything seems to be rolling. I'm very happy and confident.
Anyway, can I see the data?
Yes.
From TF10?
Yes, sure. Yes.
Usually when you apply some sanguinarine to the bacteria,
yes,
that goes like this, and there's something that disappears. What if you apply some antibiotics instead of sanguinarine? Is any antibiotics make this thing happen?
Yes, it truly depends what we're looking for. Because this experiment, as you know, you can use any antibiotics, but everything depends on the mechanism of action. You know, some antibiotics will work through the cell wall, in this case, or the cytoplasmic membrane. In our case, this is what we have found. But if it has to be another mechanism of action, you may as well find yourself with a ghost cell but the mechanism by which it goes about, it is something that you have to determine for yourself in the beginning, depending on the molecule that you have. In the antibiotics, depending on the families, there are different ways of acting, as you know, they will attack different sites of action.
Right, so there are some different kind of antibiotics?
Yes.
Yeah. How can you conclude that this sanguinarine is very similar with some type of antibiotics?
Yes, very good question. The reason is, you know, what we will call the chemists, or we will call those synthesizing the drugs. When we put the chemicals into families, we realize that, oh, berberine, for example, is an alkaloid as well. We check at the structure, what some people will call in chemistry, structure-activity relationship. The structure-activity relationship gives us an idea of the mechanism of action of a specific compound. So my view of it, my idea was, oh, these two compounds, berberine and sanguinarine, they're from the same family. Is it possible that they are the same mechanism of action or similar because of their structure? So while I investigated, then I went through this experiment to actually see that, yes, it's possible that they have a similar action. But I have to say that berberine is acting on the DNA, Gerard, of the bacteria, is actually attacking the DNA, is also attacking the cytoplasmic membrane. So I think that in the future, if you want to do more experiment on this, we have to actually make a specific experiment regarding the DNA, the inhibition of the DNA. That will be a good approach to actually verify it and conclude for sure that, yes, it is also attacking the DNA. But as you see, I did not really mention the DNA. I did not do the experiment regarding the DNA. But we did the experiment regarding the cell wall and how it is entering the cytoplasmic membrane. Thank you.
What is the solubility of sanguinarine?
Very difficult question. The solubility of sanguinarine, I think that then we have to ask our question about the formulation. Because the solubility of a compound, we usually talk about it when we are looking to put together a formulation and really see it dissolve well in a specific environment. Are you talking about the solubility into the membrane or solubility into a specific compound? I'm not too sure.
Yeah, which solvent did you use?
In this case, I just used DMSO. DMSO, it's soluble in DMSO, no problem. Yes, you can put it in DMSO and it's very good. It just go in and just make your dilution. You don't have to change anything specific on that.
Thank you for your beautiful presentation. Could you tell me the future programs of development of new drugs using sanguinarine?
Yes.
Or any other your countries' natural products?
Okay, I will answer to the two questions. As for sanguinarine, this is what I think that being interested in drug development, it will be interesting to actually go to the second phase, which is like having the best combination of sanguinarine and ciprofloxacin and really see how it's working on the mouse and really see the effect on the mouse in terms of vitro activity. If the results are good, as we know, the next phase will be to actually see into clinical trials, if it's possible to go to the phase 1 clinical trials. The number 2 aspect of sanguinarine here that we have to look, like I said to Professor Wong, is to actually verify another experiment with the DNA. Because we can see, like I see here, that we have a ghost cell, but we don't necessarily know in terms of structure-activity relationship which molecule is it binding with sanguinarine. So it will be a good interesting experiment to do and really verify with the DNA if it's actually inhibiting the synthesis of the DNA or inhibition of some proteins. So that will be an interesting experiment to do as well, to actually make sure that we know fully the mechanism of action of that molecule. Now, as for my country, as you know, my country is still in project, and I really hope you come to our country to help us develop a lot of natural products. But we have this project using natural products with our, we have a special forest in our country where we are studying herbal drugs. We still need some equipment in terms of what is regard to isolations, but we already have some good compounds like the bugail, which actually is being very interesting these days, which is an aphrodisiac but has a lot of medicinal properties. And we have other compounds too that you probably saw, Bodial and SP. We only did basic research, and our country is still in construction, and my coming here in Korea is to invite you and good students of Korea to come and work with us to develop drugs that we know are really unique in our country. So we really hope you come to visit us soon.
네. 질문이 있으면은 개인적으로 그러면은 질문을 받도록 하고 오늘 발표를 해준 바이스 박수로 부탁드리겠습니다. 감사합니다. 다음은 권준호 학생 발표하겠습니다.
Larry, le représentant, réalisateur de la vidéo du confrère par rapport à sa représentation. Magnifique et parfaite d'ailleurs, je précise. Bon job, bon travail. Respect.
Oui, bonsoir, il est 22h, je suis à bord du KTX, le train le plus rapide du monde. J'ai terminé ma présentation, ça s'est bien passé, j'ai eu des félicitations. Donc c'est un chapitre qui est bouclé, dont je tiens à remercier mes parents qui m'ont toujours soutenu, mes frères et sœurs qui m'ont toujours soutenu, mes amis, tous ceux qui m'ont appelé, tous ceux qui ont prié pour moi, tous ceux qui m'ont encouragé. Je tiens vraiment à vous remercier. Et je remercie particulièrement le Seigneur Jésus par qui tout a été possible, même quand les choses n'étaient pas claires. Bon, là je suis fatigué, j'ai besoin de dormir pendant quelques heures avant de retourner à d'autres nouveaux défis. Et on va voir ce que le Seigneur a pour nous. Et continuons de prier, d'arriver à faire de grandes choses pour notre pays et pourquoi pas pour le Gabon. Pour le monde entier, je voulais dire. Bon, mais excusez, je suis un peu fatigué. Et pour ceux qui sont en train de regarder cette vidéo, j'espère que vous avez apprécié la présentation. Et on se redonne rendez-vous prochainement. Que Dieu vous bénisse.